That's where you were born.
Well, I was born in Manjimup on the 3rd of November of 1925.
Yeah.
Melbourne Cup Day, as a matter of fact.
Melbourne Cup Day.
Yeah.
Day Winbad won the Melbourne
That's
Cup.
dead right, the day Winbag won. No relationship to me.
Winbag.
Yeah.
Seems funny that, though, doesn't it? Youngest of 7 children.
Yes, the only one of the family born in Manjimup.
Father working in the forestry.
Yes, he wasn't the first forester. I think there was only one fellow there before him. But it was a one-man station, and he worked there till he retired.
And what do you remember of Manjimup in those days?
Well, I suppose my first memory would be, the first thing I can really remember, apart from doing things with Mum and Dad, would have been the 1929 centenary, wouldn't it have been, yeah, 1929 centenary, going up and looking at the street parade they had in the street. But I can remember also things like going to Mass in a horse and sulky with my mum and dad. Being the youngest, I'd get the ride in the sulky and the others would all have to walk. So that's just something I remember. And the town was very small, it had no... the hotel was there, that was a 2-storey building, but that was the only 2-storey building, and it was gravel, potholey old main street. I don't think it had a cement path. I think it had a boardwalk rather than a cement footpaths. I don't think it had a cement path. I think it had a boardwalk rather than a cement footpaths. I'm not sure of that, but part of it was boardwalk.
Would that tank stand have been there?
With the big, oh yes.
So that would have been early. Robbie's Corner?
Robbie's Corner?
Yeah.
Well, there was a little shop there, nothing like it was as you would know it, but it was, there was a picture theatre behind that.
Yeah.
The Rainbow Picture Theatre, do you remember that?
No. I remember there being something behind it.
Yeah.
But there was the old cork tree, wasn't there?
Yes, Co-op was there when I was...
No, the cork tree on Robbie's Corner.
Oh yes, that was pretty original, yeah.
But that would have been there when you were a kid?
Well, it was certainly, I don't remember when it was, how small it was, but it was there as long as I can remember.
Yeah. Must have been planted though, because it wouldn't be a native tree, would it, the cork tree?
Oh no, it was planted.
Right. And you went to school at the convent?
Yes, started school at St Joseph's School, or St Joseph Convent School. That's always a bit of a misnomer. People say, "Did you go to the convent?" Well, it's the convent school, not the convent, because the convent's where the nuns live. I went to the St Joseph's School, yeah, and stayed there until I did from the first bubs through to year 7 of the Hilton.
Mm-hmm. Would there have been many nuns there in those days?
They were all nuns, yeah.
But how many would there have been?
Oh, probably 5 or 6, I suppose.
Mm. I think there was 6 there when I was at school there, so it must have been a pretty consistent number.
Yeah.
Music teacher?
Yes, yeah.
So what, you went, did you play football at all?
Oh, we used to play school kids football, yeah, of course we're only young blokes and that, little blokes. But then I suppose, yeah, we had our own, didn't play a lot of inter-school games. There was quite a good oval at the school, or you wouldn't call it an oval, it was a paddock really, but we used to have a couple of goals up there and make our own teams. And, you know.
Was there much mixing between the kids at the state school and the convent?
Oh, not really. No, not a lot of intimate relationship, no.
But did you tend to, after school hours, would you tend to knock around with
Well, you went straight home after school in those days.
No.
You didn't mess around, you were supposed to go home, and that's what you did.
Yeah. And what sort of things would you do after school?
Well, being a family of 7, Jack was the eldest. Well, he was out of the picture, but we'd play our own games at home. We had a lot of fun playing games like Chasey, Heidi. These names wouldn't mean anything to you, but Red Rover all over was another one. Brandy, where we'll say 5 of the kids in, you get 2 outside and 3 inside, and you'd have a tennis ball and you'd try and hit one.
Did you mainly play amongst yourselves, or did you play with other kids?
Oh, weekends we would. The Andersons might come down, or the Harveys. They were kids from the same school.
Yeah. The Andersons would have lived quite a way away, though, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, a bit over a mile.
Oh, yeah. Did you go out rabbiting or anything like that?
Oh, well, on the weekends that was one of our big things. Yeah, we had a little dog, a little Irish Terrier. We always had a dog, of course, but he was a terrific rabbiter. Dinny, his name was, and he was. We'd take him out, and then we'd also take a shovel out and dig out their burrows. We never took them home. We never used to eat rabbits at home, but we used to just dig them out and kill them. So it was. But rabbits were a nuisance, a plague then, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Only Jewel talked about going out looking for orchids.
Oh, in springtime, certainly. That was a very big deal. As small kids, we didn't have bikes, so we didn't go out and get much Baronia or Croya or anything, but we certainly used to go out the back, because the bush came right down to our back fence in the forestry. There was only one house there at the time, and the bush used to come right down to the fence, and there were lots of orchids there, you know, spider orchids and lots, big variety of orchids.
Would you describe your childhood as a happy childhood?
Very much so, very much so. We never had, well no, see, it was the different circumstances. I was born in 25, well by the time I started to remember things, I got to school it was probably 31, and that was right in the middle of the Depression, so nobody had much, so you made your own fun.
Like, Grandad was a government worker, wasn't he?
Yes, yes.
So, why would the Depression why did it have an effect on you? Wouldn't he have still got his regular pay?
I don't know what his wage would be. He had a government job, but he had 7 kids also, so you can imagine that it'd be pretty hard.
But would he have received a pay cut during the Depression?
Oh, I wouldn't have a clue. We never went hungry, I know that's for sure.
Yeah.
But we never, certainly, didn't have any, we always were well covered, but never very flash clothes, only the essentials. Probably had Sunday clothes.
The Depression was what, peaked at 33, was it?
Well, Australia? It was from about 29 till about 35, then it started to ease off.
Yeah. Did you have a sense that the Depression was over, or?
Well, I was only a bit young, so I'd only be 12. I wouldn't really.
You wouldn't have known.
Know too much about the Depression, and that's, we'll say, 25 to 35 was only 10, so.
Yeah. But, and then you went away to boarding school. What age?
I went away, well, in year, first year, what was that? That'd be year 8, wouldn't it?
Usually year 10, 13.
Yeah. And I went up there. It was, my brother Pat had gone the year before. No, he hadn't. He'd gone 2 years before me. He went in 37, I went in 39. And it used to be very long at Enorcia, at St Ildefonsus College in Enorcia. And it was a pretty long term. We only used to get the one break in the year. We'd go up there early in February and have June, the full month of June off, and go back and come back in December. So no home breaks in that time because, particularly when I was there, because the war was on and there was petrol shortage.
Did you go up there? Well, obviously the war was on if you went up there in 39.
Yeah, I went there in 39. The war started when I was there.
Oh, yeah. Did you have much sense that there was war was impending?
Oh, well, we had a radio, and you heard all the news that the Germans had invaded Czechoslovakia or wherever it was,
Yeah.
and then it gradually got to the stage where it got closer. But I was at school, and they used to had a notice board at school, and they used to paste up the West Australian, so we could read the news of what had happened. And of course, we were there when the war started. As a matter of fact, I think we all had mumps at the time it started. I remember us kids were in a dormitory, about 20 or so with mumps, and the war started, and of course we started playing war games when we could, jumping under the beds and doing everything we shouldn't have done. But I left there in 39, 40, 41. I left there in 41. Probably the saddest thing was my mother died in 40, and that was pretty hard to take. But of course I didn't get to go home. There was just no petrol. We didn't have cars, so we just stayed there. That's all we could do.
Did you enjoy your time at...
Well, I don't know that I enjoyed it at the time. I was never a great student and never a great sport. But yes, I suppose I enjoyed it. We had our, you had your moments, I suppose, when you didn't like it, but there was most of the time. When you look back on it...
What did you enjoy about it?
Well, you're mixed with different fellas, got to know blokes from all over the state, because there was made different friends, and there's friends that I've still got now through my association with the boarding school.
And you left school in...
Left school in 39. I'm sorry, 41.
Yeah.
Started work in 42. Well, I started work on the Christmas of 41. Do you want to know what my first jobs were?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I worked for a while at a drapery store,
Did you?
Shad's Drapery, and that was just dusting down and brushing clothes and sweeping the floor and being the general dog's body and doing a little bit of serving. But that didn't suit me too much, so I looked for another job, and I started at the butter factory. And my first job at the butter factory was cutting bulk butter into pound pats. About 500 mil, I suppose it's called now.
500 grams.
500 milligrams, yeah.
How long did you work at Shad's for?
At the butter factory?
No, how long did you work at Shad's for?
Oh, only a few months.
So you would have been 15, 16?
Yeah, 16 probably. My birthday was November. Anyway, that was a fairly hard. It wasn't the butter. Cutting the butter wasn't that hard, but then after a couple of years of that, I shifted from there up to the cream receiving floor, and that was hard work.
Physically hard.
Pardon?
Physically hard.
Physically hard, because you had to lift 10-gallon cans. Now 10-gallon cans are about 45 litres, full of cream. That's pretty heavy. Then not only that, but the cans had to be all washed out, which was a lot of bending over. Then after that was processed, everything had to be washed down. A lot more hot, sticky work with hot water and sterilising all the stainless steel vats and the holding vats. So it was pretty tough going.
Stainless steel in those days?
I beg your pardon?
Stainless steel in those days?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the war was on during that time?
Yes, the war finished in 1945, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I left there in 1946. Then of all things I took on a milk round.
Yeah. But before, just getting back to the war period, how was it as a young fellow? Like you, what would have been manpower? Were you officially manpowered? Or?
Oh yeah, I had no chance, or anyone that was working in the butter factory had no chance of joining up. I joined, pardon me, at 16.
Yeah.
And once you were working there,
yeah.
even if I know there was blokes did try and join.
Yeah.
Someone I was talking to just the other day that I used to work with then, he badly wanted to join the Navy because
Yeah.
his brother was in the Navy, but he couldn't.
Yeah.
And you're just manpower, that's all there was to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fellas in the mill were the same. It was considered an essential service and they couldn't join.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, it was a little bit embarrassing, really,
Yeah.
because it wasn't so bad when you were 16. When you got to 18
Yeah.
and your mates were going away
Yeah.
and you felt you should have been going with them,
Yeah.
and then if you went everywhere where everyone was usually in, blokes come home in uniform and here you were still in civvies, it was
Yeah.
a bit embarrassing, but not much you could do about it.
And did you ever get a hard time as a result of it?
No, I don't think I was ever heckled over
You never got a white feather or
Never,
anything?
no, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Would it have happened to people?
Oh, it did happen to people, but not to anyone that I knew of.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But
You're saying you took over a milk round after leaving the butter factory?
yes, yeah. Well, funnily enough, or strange enough, I got sick and I had to go to hospital. I caught a cold and got pleurisy because I tried to work through it. It was the first time in my life I'd ever been in hospital. And of course it knocked me about a bit, so it's a bit complicated. But my brother Jim was a storeman in one of the local stores, and he took the milk round over and ran it. And later on, a couple of weeks after I recuperated, I got his job in the store. And I worked there from 1946 to 1955, I think it was. And I went from storeman onto the grocery side of it, which I haven't got time to describe what a grocery store was like at that time.
I think it would be good to describe it, because
Pardon?
it would be good to describe it.
Well, it was a big general store, and you'd have no idea what that's like, but you walked in and there was a counter at least 30 metres, 30 or 40 metres long, all down one wall. And that was staffed by 6 or 7 people working behind it.
Mm.
And they were grocers, that was their call. You were a grocer if you worked on the grocery counter. And then, of course, there was no self-service. People would come in and just give you their order, what they wanted for the week's order.
Yeah.
You'd have to write out the docket, you'd have to know all the prices, which you had in your head, because prices were stable in those days. Like, the price wouldn't change from year to year. And you'd have to total up the docket, and they'd part, then you wrap the order up. No paper bags or plastic bags, you'd have to wrap it up in brown paper, tie it up with string, and you got pretty proficient at making a good parcel. If you didn't, it'd fall to pieces. And they'd pick it up. Then another part of my job was on the Monday, I'd get on a push bike and I'd go around calling on people and getting their requirements for the week. In other words, their weekly order. And that'd take me 2 days to do that. So imagine I was starting to get a bit bigger by then. I'd take the orders back on the Monday night, and the others would pack them, get them up, pack them on the Tuesday, and I'd go out Tuesday and get them, and then they'd be packed on Wednesday, and then they'd be delivered to the homes of all the people on the Wednesday and Thursday. And then, of course, then the rest of the time I'd spend on the counter. In about 1944, my brother Jim, who was by that time working in the hardware department of the things, Foy and Gibson's took the store over and they made it a departmental store. And Jim was in charge of the hardware, and he joined the police force and I got his job. So I seemed to follow him round. I forgot his job as a storeman, I got his job in the hardware. That was a good job, I liked it very much. There's only a one-man department, but I had to do the buying and the costing and the selling. And after a couple of years at that, I was offered a job at BP, was opening a new bulk terminal. And to my surprise, someone approached me and says, "Why don't you ever go up that terminal job?" And I said, "Well, I've had no experience, I have no chance." Oh, I says, you might be able to, so I'll put a good word in for you. So I made a few...
Who was that?
Pardon?
Who was that put in
Well,
the
it was
good
Jim Archer, actually.
Aye.
I applied for it and got it. I had to go to Bunbury for a month to learn how to operate a depot. That's what it was called, a bulk depot. The fuel came down in 6,000 gallon rail tank cars. Now these 6,000 gallon, that's about what, how many, 40,000 litres, I think.
Bit like what's on the back of a
Tanker.
semi-trailer, yeah.
More
Tanker.
bigger than that. More than that.
Aye.
They were rail tank
Yeah.
cars, big whoppers. Anyway, of course, at that time there was very little bulk fuel sold, only to the petrol sites and commercial places like the mills, and all the other purchases were done in drums.
Aye.
So it was my job to clean the drums, paint the drums, fill the drums, and sell them when people come in for them, or have them delivered by the company truck. They had a semi-trailer tanker and a semi-trailer or convertible semi-trailer for delivering drum fuel.
Was it a one-person operation, was it?
Pardon?
Was it a one-person operation?
No, there was a driver.
Aye.
I had a...
Did he help you much?
Well, he was pretty busy. Yeah, if he had spare time, he helped. You know, paint the things.
Aye.
Different
Just paint them by hand, would you?
All by hand, yeah.
But would you paint them every time, or?
No, only if they look scruffy.
Aye, yeah.
But you had to clean them every time. Have them thoroughly cleaned inside.
What would you clean them out with? What would you clean them out with?
Well, a big brass rod with a type of mop on it.
Yeah,
And the mop was made of chamois.
yeah.
So there was no fluff or anything like that left in the drum.
Aye.
And of course they used brass, or it wasn't actually brass, it was a composite thing, so there was no spark
Yeah,
with metal, so you had to be very careful.
yeah.
And I stayed there for a couple of years in the depot, and then they
Did you have
offered...
any sense that that was a dangerous job?
Beg your pardon?
Did you have any sense of the danger associated with that job?
Oh, you had to. Well, you learned in the month when I was in Bunbury to be very careful, because no one was allowed to smoke inside the depot. That was
Right.
taboo completely. And if anyone came in, you just told them to put their cigarette out.
Right.
But after that, I was offered a job as a sales representative, company representative. And I wasn't very keen on taking that. And I used the excuse that Mum's family were there and my dad was getting old and I didn't want to leave him. I was the last one of the family living in Manjimup. So then the job as a sales representative came there in Manjimup, so I had no chance of getting out of it. I had to take it.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy that much. A brand new car, fairly prestigious job, but it wasn't my piece of cake, because a lot of it was the debt collecting also. When someone got behind with their accounts, you had to go and put the hard word on them. So then the opportunity came to a very good service station, BP service station, became available, and Jim Nichol and I went into partnership and bought that and went into business, and I was there for 8 years.
How'd you come to get that? That was Jim Archer as well, was it?
Yes, right. Well, see, he was the BP, he sold the BP petrol, so he had an association with BP. That's how he knew this depot, that's how he recommended me for the job. Anyway, after 8 years, our three boys were, I thought it was no good hanging them in the hair, because no one's going to take over a petrol station, family-wise. It was a partnership, and that was another thing. So the opportunity presented itself, and I bought a hardware store. I worked at that for 13 years. Then sold that. Surprised myself and everyone else by going into a funeral business for 5 years. Got out of that.
Which you also bought, you took over from Archer.
Strange enough.
That's a
rather unique.
yeah.
Uh,
But by pure chance, really.
pardon?
There wasn't.
Yeah, coincidental, really. But then after that, I did a couple of various odd jobs. I mowed lawns at the bowling club 2 days a week. Then after that, I worked at a furniture store 1 day a week. So then
You were quite involved with things, weren't you? Like the Chamber of Commerce and.
oh yeah, yes, I was president of the Chamber of Commerce for quite a while. I was very involved in the P&F, the school setup.
I remember when you were on the Chamber of Commerce, I can remember you saying with great pride how Manjimup had, removed all the veranda posts.
Oh, the Chamber of Commerce didn't remove them.
No, but you were proud of the
I
fact.
think at the time, yeah, it was a modern town, probably the most modern country town in the southwest.
Yeah.
But you never liked the idea of them taking the veranda posts
Well,
down.
no. I just like Manjimup was a modern town, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't a sentimental town, was it?
No, it was a real newish kind of a town. Bridgetown was a much older place.
Yeah.
And Bridgetown still looks the same now as it did, although it's gone ahead a lot, but I mean, it's still got a lot of those lovely old buildings, which Manjimup doesn't have.
Yeah. But I think there was a different mentality there, wasn't it? Like a lot of the quaintness.
In Bridgetown?
Yeah, but not just Bridgetown, other towns as well, like, whereas Manjimup was, I suppose, yeah, like a modern town, I think.
Well, it was more cosmopolitan. It drew its income mainly from all the mills around it.
Yeah.
There was about 6 mills
Yeah.
surrounding the town,
Yeah.
and they, in those days, employed a lot of people,
Mm.
and it made it a good business town, so it grew quickly
Yeah.
with the timber industry. And then there was dairying, and tobacco was a big thing, a lot of tobacco grown in the early days. So it was a good all-round country town.
Mm. You're a JP at a young age.
Yeah, so I was made a JP in 1961. That made me about 36, which was, I was told, the youngest in the state at the time, the youngest appointment in the state.
How'd you come to be a JP?
Oh, well, good question.
Well, why do you reckon?
Well, when in a country town, if there's a JP dies or a JP leaves the area or they're short of a justice of the peace, they've got to have another one. And in those days, you didn't apply to be a justice of the peace, you were asked to be one by usually the Shire President or the local Member of Parliament.
Would ask somebody.
He asked me if I'd take it on, and
Who asked you?
well, the local Member of Parliament asked me if I'd pull it on. And I did. Spoke to justices that I knew and asked them about it. And they said, "Oh yes, you're fairly young, but you seem to be level-headed. Give it a go." So I was appointed in 1961, and I've been a justice now for 40 years.
And what was your main work as a justice of the peace?
Well, mainly doing signatures, witnessing signatures, affidavits and what have you. But also you'd always get court work, minor traffic offences, minor offences where people pleaded guilty, anything that was controversial. You'd remand it till the magistrate came, and the magistrate used to come once a month. Well, if there was a case of dangerous driving and the fellow admitted he was dangerous driving, you passed a sentence on him, which was a mandatory thing, and if he pleaded not guilty, you'd probably remand it to the magistrate, let him deal with it.
Yeah. What about warrants?
Oh yes, used to sign warrants for sure.
Did you vet them?
Pardon?
Did you vet them?
Well, you had to use your own and sense of, what should you say, sense of responsibility. I know that only once it backfired. A fellow came one night and abused me for signing a warrant, and I hadn't even signed it. So I gave him a piece of my mind, but no, that was the only thing I had which was a bit of a confrontation, but it wasn't my fault at all.
Yeah. But no, did you ever question the police on the basis on which they were seeking a warrant?
Well, as this fellow said, oh, you've known me all my life, I wouldn't do that, but he had a fellow staying at his house. The police, I found out after, the police wanted to search the house.
Yeah.
And of course, whoever it was that issued the warrant was quite entitled to, because this fellow wasn't the best, most savoury bloke in the world, so that's how it happened.
But did you, when the police would come to you for a warrant, would you question them on
Of
why?
course you would. Yeah, well, you'd have to ask them what was their grounds for it. You didn't just say you used to sign it. No, well, they'd always tell you
Yeah.
that, you know, this is a stolen, goods stolen. They've believe he was that the place was seen to be, you know, proven that wasn't proven. They were sure that he had the stuff and you have to sign it on.
So
It never proved a problem.
the fact that your service station was over the road from the police station.
Well, it might have been a contributing factor, but I don't think it was necessarily. There was another service station over the road from the police station too, if you remember, and no one was there was asked to be a JP.
Yeah.
So if you're applying, the only reason I was made a JP was because
No, I wasn't applying. I was just wondering.
the inference was there though, God.
But I was just wondering whether you're a yes man for the police.
If I was a what?
Whether you're a yes man.
A yes man.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine if the police come to get a warrant signed, that they wouldn't necessarily want to go into much detail why they want the warrant. They'd just want the JP to sign it and get on with the job.
No, they'd tell you why they wanted it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Of course, by the same token, you knew the police personally anyway.
Yeah,
You know, by and large, you were friends with most of them.
yeah.
Particularly friendly because we lived close to them. They'd come over and buy drinks and buy cigarettes and things like that to come home.
Yeah.
Some of them I played tennis with.
And Australia Day Committee, what was that about?
Well, that started in about 1947. It was the biggest log chop in Australia at the time. It built up to be the biggest log chop in Australia, and I was the secretary of that. Although I must admit that most of the secretarial work was done by one of the girls in the bank, I think. The person involved was a bank manager, and he used to get all the typing and things like that done. And he used to draft a lot of the letters also, but I was, my name was on there as secretary, put it that way.
And
that wound up in about 56 or 57.
yeah. And then I suppose wood chopping, wood chipping, when there was when they opened up the wood chip mill, there was a campaign against it, wasn't there?
Oh, very much so.
And you took a stand similar to what Trish Townsend would be doing today, wouldn't it?
Well, we were a local committee, I suppose. Yes, I suppose you could say that. They probably asked me to be it because I was in business, pretty well known because of being in business, and also, I suppose, being a JP. They might have had some bearing on it, I don't know, but they had a fella in Collie, Richie Palmer was there in Collie, I was the lower southwest, and there was another fellow somewhere, and
When you say they asked you, who were they?
Who?
Who asked you to do it? It wasn't something that you initiated.
No, I didn't initiate it. I think it was like a bit like I say, Tricia, the Forest Product Group was more or less behind it. Yeah.
Oh, so it wasn't a groundswell of...
No, it wasn't the grassroots things.
Oh, what, so you were like front it, a bit like Pierce, what's his name?
The former
Yeah.
MP. Well, yes, possibly, yeah, because they're much lower.
Mhm.
Because it's all voluntarily.
Yeah, local level. You're pretty much involved in the church too, Dad?
Oh, yeah, yes. I was certainly on all the committees with the building of the new church. Was very much part of building with the new school. It was very opportune that Father Kelly came to the place at the time, and he could see the necessity of a high school, and he changed it from a 3-year high to a 5-year high, which enabled the fact that the girls didn't have to go away to school to attain their leaving. So
They would have done that otherwise, would they?
Pardon?
They would have done that otherwise, would they?
Well, they'd have to go away if they wanted to do their TE. Oh, they could have gone to the high school, I suppose, but that
You wouldn't have sent them to the high school?
Well, I didn't.
No, but would you have? Or would you have sent them?
Well, I think I would have tried. I sent the boys away to school,
Yeah,
and I think I would have tried to do the same with the girls.
yeah.
But there was no need for the girls to go over because they could take their leaving or their TE, as it was now called, at home.
Yeah.
But the sad part about that, of course, like all things in the country, once they go to further their studies, or say at either university or a training college or nursing, well, they go away and they don't come back.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to our family. The whole family moved away. And then I did get an attack of arthritis, pretty severe one, which I couldn't chop wood, I couldn't
It
maintain.
came on very quickly. Well, you had arthritis.
I'd had it for years, but I went...
Well, where did you have it?
Mum and I went to a trip to...
No, where did you have your arthritis in the early days?
Where do you mean, where in my body or where?
Yeah, where on your body?
Mainly in the legs and the arms.
Yeah, at what age?
Oh, well, I would have been 54 or 5, I suppose.
Did you have it when you were in the shop?
To a degree, yeah. But not too bad.
Yeah. Because you used to play tennis, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Big
But
serve.
it wasn't too bad.
You had a big serve, if I remember rightly.
Beg your
You
pardon?
had a big serve.
Oh, yeah.
Power serve.
Power serve, yeah. My son seems to have got the same kind of learn how to serve.
Did the rest of your game consist of much?
Did I what?
Did the rest of your game consist of much?
Did
the rest of your game, you had a big serve.
Oh,
But
no, I played a lot of tennis as a young bloke. Very big lot of tennis as a young bloke. You know, I used to play in the town competitions on glass courts.
Yeah,
But that was before I went away to school.
yeah.
But after I come home from school, the tennis folded up because of the war. You couldn't get tennis balls or tennis rackets. And there was no tennis clubs in Manchester. It got going later on.
Yeah,
And I used to play social tennis after that. But that
at
was
night. Evening tennis at night.
Yeah,
You used to play.
under lights.
Yeah. And then you took over the you left the hardware.
Well, left the hardware in 1979, and Mum and I had a trip to England, Ireland and the continent, and that's when I think, I still maintain now, being relatively active up till then, I could keep my arthritis at bay, but sitting in a coach virtually for 29 days, I think the arthritis got into my knees, and by the time I came home from holidays I was pretty crippled up, and it got progressively worse where I had to go to the hospital for about a week or so, and they filled them out with dope and improved quite considerably, but I wasn't much good. I couldn't do much after that. And that's when we decided to look for an alternative, so we sold our house in Manjimup and moved up here to Thomas Perrott Village in '91, and been very happy with that ever since.
Were you sad to leave Manjimup, or?
Well, yes, certainly. We're somewhere you lived all your life and lose a lot of friends, but it compensated us by the fact we moved up to where our family was. There was 5 of the family up here. Stephen was still in Manjimup, but then we started to see more of the grandkids, more of the family. We moved in here, and people said you'd never settle because I was pretty active in the town, having been in business for 25 years or something. I was pretty well known, and people said, oh, you'll never settle down to that kind of life. But we moved in here, and it was extremely friendly. It was like moving out of one community into another little community. And we never really, did we? We never found the transition much at all. Because, as I said, it was compensated by the fact we're now seeing far more of our second crop of grandchildren than we did the first crop. We've got some lovely little grandchildren, even got a lovely little great-grandchild. Not as good as what ours were, original children, though. Their father doesn't think, their grandfather thinks it's better than they were ours. Anyway, that just about wraps it up, does it, or what?
Well, we could talk about other things.
Oh, what do you want to talk about? You're the questioner.
Turn it off for a minute. Will you have a cup of tea? Maybe now. It's 9:30.